sending positive vibes to all truth seekers. Welcome to the Library of Humanity podcast. Today, we're going to look at one of the best meditation strategies or practices that I have found to date. And I have looked at a few at this point in my life. I've been meditating off and on for about 3 years. I started off by practicing and studying Zen meditation, which is basically the do nothing method. If you want to learn more about that, I'll probably talk about more about that in the future. But here we're looking at another strategy called self-inquiry. And there's two spellings on that. I'm going to put them both down in the description of this video. And self-inquiry is, I would say, maybe one of the more natural type of meditations. Zen might be one of the more, also one of the more natural meditations, because doing nothing is just being. That would be for Zen. That's just being who you are, just sitting down quietly and being who you are. And then self-inquiry is a little bit similar. So I'm gonna go into the details here. I have the Wikipedia page up. I'm gonna use that as my notes for this video. But basically, just a brief intro is there is the true self that has always been you, or your soul. You call it your soul or your true self, and you have called that I the whole time, your whole life. So if you imagine when you're awake and you're going through your day, you're living life from your I, from I am. You're living life from I am, or your soul, or your true self. Also, when you're dreaming, you are coming at the dream from the perspective of I am. So all of these events in the world are happening, and those are the objects. You call those the objects of your experience of either dreaming or awake. And then there's your senses. There's your 5 senses. So you could maybe see, or you could hear, or you could touch the objects of the world or of your dream. Now the question in self-inquiry is, what is looking at the world? What is hearing the world, right? It's I. It's I am seeing the world. I am hearing noises. Okay, so self-inquiry is actually, instead of going outward towards the world, you're actually inquiring back towards yourself. You're inquiring into the I am. So if you think about it, the I am is the only thing that is constant in your entire life. Everything else has come into existence and then has left existence. So that's the profundity, that's the deepness of this self-inquiry, is going into yourself, your true self. And again, it's the thing that hasn't moved. It's always there. It is the only thing that's permanent. So in one of the things in meditation in general, in any school of meditation, is figuring out what is permanent and what is impermanent. So that's similar with Zen, is you're trying to figure out what is permanent, and it is the isness, the consciousness. So that's what you're looking at in Zen, is your being in that consciousness. But in Zen it's not pointing to the consciousness. It's not trying to figure out what that is intellectually, right? It's just trying to get you in touch with the consciousness, the permanence of it, rather than the impermanence of things and ideas, and even feelings and sensations. So self-inquiry is pretty similar, but you're actually going deeper. You're going one level deeper, because you're figuring out from where is all of this happening. From also to, and also towards. So like to whom, or to, so that's the proper grammar. To understand this, you have to learn the grammar. To whom means who is the world happening to, but that's bad grammar, right? So you say to whom. To whom is the world happening? To whom is the world happening, but also thoughts. So not just the outside world, but also thoughts. So to whom are these thoughts happening? Because the question is, what are the thoughts? Where are the thoughts coming from? Have you ever thought about that? Where are the thoughts coming from? Are you creating the thoughts? So in self-inquiry, as you go from beginner, intermediate, and advanced, kind of at the intermediate level where I'm at currently, you start seeing that thoughts are actually a part of the environment, and therefore your mind is actually part of the environment. And it's not created by you. You are this thing that is happening in the background of all of the existence happening. All of the happenings, all of the events, all of the feelings, sensations, friends you meet. The I am, and for you it's the I am, for me it's the I am. So I can't say you, I have to say I am. Because for you, it's I am. So let's just stick with I am. So I'm going to use me as an example. But I'm not me, I'm I. So that's another thing, is don't get mixed up between me and I. I is distinct. I is different than me. Me is the idea of you, rather than I is the reality of you. So I is what we're looking at, not me. Right? We can inquire into me. That would be very easy. You'd say, okay, well, how tall am I? How old am I? What is my name? Where did I go to school? So these are your facts, or the data about you. But we're not looking at facts or data here. We are looking at the reality of I am. Okay? So let's start towards the beginning of this Wikipedia page. Again, there's two spellings. The Wikipedia page is spelling self-inquiry with the E. So it's self-inquiry, ENQUIRY. And in parentheses, it's going to have this man named Ramana Maharshi. And Maharshi is MAHARSHI. And you'll see a nice photo of Ramana Maharshi once you open the Wikipedia page. So let's just start with there. So we looked at what self-inquiry is. Who was Ramana Maharshi? Ramana Maharshi was from India. Okay, and let me get his dates exactly here. He lived in the early 1900s. I think he passed away. It actually doesn't have his dates here. He passed away in about the 1930s or 40s. So he was famous kind of when Mahatma Gandhi was famous. So there's actually a story where Mahatma Gandhi and Ramana Maharshi almost met, but they actually didn't meet. They almost did, though. Okay, a little bit more about Ramana is when he was a teenager, he had kind of this epiphany, right? Well, that's another word for an epiphany, is a spiritual awakening, in his parents' room. And he was like lying down on the ground and on the carpet, and he realized something very profound. I can't speak to you in words what that was. Usually when a spiritual awakening happens for somebody, you can't explain it in words. So let's just say that he had a spiritual awakening, and then he had this desire to live that from the perspective of the spiritual awakening, the reality of it. So he didn't have the desire to forget it. He didn't want to forget it. He wanted to live it. Okay. And as you learn more about Ramana Maharshi, what that was is that he discovered his I am, or he got in touch with the reality of the I am. And so he ended up actually meditating in a cave for many, many years. Many, many years. I don't know exactly how many, but many years. So if you imagine yourself, how would you deal with that, living in a cave for years, just meditating by yourself? How would you manage? So what would you focus on? you'd have to avoid becoming crazy, right? How would you avoid becoming too kind of crazy by just living by yourself in a cave? You have to stick with, to not become crazy, you have to stay with reality. You can't become delusional, right? So there's the reality and then there's the delusion. So this is maybe the true test of you. Figuring out what you are is maybe isolating yourself for a little bit from society. Maybe like a 10-day or a 40-day silent retreat. Maybe that's one of the better methods. That's called a Vipassana retreat. If you're interested, you comment below and ask about that. I can let you know. There's usually 10-day or 40-day meditation retreats all over the world, but a lot are in the United States or in Thailand. But anyways, so the idea is not to turn crazy or loco, right? During that time, especially if you do it for more than 40 days, right? Or even more than 10 days for that matter. The way to do that is staying with the reality of I am. You realize that the I am is the only reality, or it's the only permanent reality. So you have to stick with the permanence of the I am. And that's exactly how Ramana, I would presume, avoided becoming crazy by living in a cave for so long, was that he was sticking with that reality of the I am. Okay, and then Ramana, so what happened during that time that he was in the cave? This is what happened was, from my perspective, is that he embodied the I am, embodiment. So embodiment, what does that mean? Body. Okay, so you live the I am. Everything is your awareness is in the I am. Your awareness doesn't get distracted by the objects of the world. That wouldn't be embodiment. That is the opposite of an embodiment. That is believing that there is this me that's looking at the world. So that's what most people believe, because that's what our society teaches us, is there is a me in here somewhere, in the inner world, that is observing this outside world, that is thoughts and sensations and perceptions and objects and ideas and people. So that would be maybe the misconception that our society has today. But it's not weird though. It's not known as weird because 99.9% of people believe this, right? 99 out of 1,000 people believe that to be true. Is that the reality of the situation is that there's a me in here somewhere, or an I. Actually, most people believe in me instead of I. So actually, they don't really know what I is. So that's why they believe it's me. And the me is looking at this world. And they believe that it's them, it's the me perceiving the world. I am perceiving the world. It is me that is perceiving the world. So that's the assumption. But that's not the reality of the situation if you dive into I am. So that is the self-inquiry, is sticking with that I am. Okay, so let's continue reading a little bit. So self-inquiry. So it's also known as Atma Vichara. And I'll put that in the description as well, Atma Vichara. So Atma, that means true self. And Vichara means investigation. So it's translated as self-inquiry, but you could think of it as investigation into your soul. I like that even more. So you're investigating into I. Okay, so here on Wikipedia it says, self-inquiry is the constant attention to the inner awareness of I or I am, recommended by Ramana Maharshi as the most efficient and direct way of discovering the unreality of the I thought. Okay, so that's what it is right there. I don't know if we're going to have to read much more in this Wikipedia page because there's so much there. So constant attention. So let's just start there. Constant. What does constant mean? It means always. So what is always? So when you're awake, that means 24 hours a day, right? 24/7. What is 24/7? You're awake and you're asleep. So we have to look at those two first. You're awake, so obviously your attention has to be towards I am all day when you're awake. So think about that. Think about what that would be, because you're not there yet and I'm not there yet. But think about what that would be. You are living your life only putting your attention into I am, only, always, only and always. So that means your attention is almost never drawn to the outside world, the physical world, nor to the mind. Okay, so the outside world is very, very distracting, right? If you think about how your mind works, you're always, like 90% of your day is you becoming interested in the outside world. The question is why? Have you ever thought about why you're so interested in the outside world? I would say it comes from our evolution of the Homo sapiens, which is what we scientifically are, right? We're Homo sapiens. That's our scientific name, Homo sapiens. We survived in our environment. We adapted to our environment by being able to interpret and also adapt. That's basically evolution, is the ability to adapt. So we adapted to our environment by interpreting and placing our attention, basically having the ability to place our attention and interpret the environment correctly. And we did that with good vision, and mostly, like, we don't smell as good as dogs do, or bears, for example. Bears even have better smelling ability than dogs do, from what I understand. And sharks, for example. But humans, we have the intellect, right? Our cerebral cortex, our brain, the part of our brain that is most human. I think the front of our brain, this area. So it's actually your third eye, according to Hinduism and yoga. But scientifically, it's the front of your brain, and that's what developed. That's what developed really well during evolution. Was that part of our brain, and that's the logical reasoning and science. You can call it scientific. That's the scientific part of our brain, because science is the investigation into the physical world. That's what science is. I'm investigating out to the physical world, right? So, and self-inquiry is the complete opposite. It is the complete opposite of scientific investigation. Well, at least how scientific investigation is currently defined as. So how it's currently defined is investigating out. That's how it currently is. But self-inquiry, if you're a forward thinker, you can see how self-inquiry can become a part of neuroscience and psychology, because you're investigating into reality, but it's investigating into the reality of the I am instead of the outside world. So I think it's actually going to be adding a piece. This is a huge topic. Because I think that this might be the answer to the problem of consciousness, right? For science, consciousness is a problem. It's actually known as the hard problem. Consciousness is known as the hard problem of science. So you can look that up right now if you're interested. Googling the hard problem of science, the hard problem of consciousness. The hard problem of consciousness. I'll talk about that more in the future, but it's extremely related to self-inquiry. Extremely related, because that's how in the future we're going to discover the nature of consciousness, because the consciousness is derived from I am, or it's created. it's created as from the perspective of I am, is consciousness. And so the whole world is happening inside of this I am, the whole world and all of our thoughts. So both the inner world and the outer world. But again, the inner world is not the inner world. It's actually the environment itself. So very, very interesting. So again, the I am is observing the outside world, constant attention. So let me get back to that. So it's 24/7, 365. So that means something has to be happening while you're sleeping. So yes, you're awake. So all day you're putting your attention into I am and not getting distracted by outside objects, conversations. But you're engaging in them, but it's no longer I engaging in it. It's observing the me. It's observing the ego getting attached to all of these things. But you as the I am begin to witness. You begin to witness all of these interactions and phenomena and events happening to the me. That's the illusion, is all of this is happening to me, right? But once you are able to witness me, so the I am is witnessing the me, which is inextricably linked to the environment. So let's just start seeing that me is the environment too. So, and it's the world. So the witness is witnessing the world, which is the mind, and your body and your thoughts are all part of that. So it's all karma, or it's all causation. It's all cause and effect. So your mind, your thoughts, your free will, even your free will is part of the environment. Because once you are able to witness the free will, that is when you're able to go really, really deep, is when you're witnessing your free will. And then you really go into question whether your will is even free. You could just start calling it will, personal will. And so you start to just watch it. And also during your sleep. So that's the other part of your 24/7, right, is when you're sleeping. So what for you, if you remember your dreams, or if you remember how you dream, what is happening? It's actually exactly like the awake state, almost exactly like it. There's like this me that's interpreting all of these events. Now now most people think that dreams are fake or just stories, but when you're dreaming, they seem real. So what is more real about the awake state and the dream state? Which is more real? I mean, that's very, very debatable. Think about the reasons why you believe that dreams are fake. Really, really investigate that. It's really interesting. The only way that you know is because you associate consciousness with the brain. It's really that's the only way, is that you associate me with the brain. So when you watch someone sleep, or when you watch a dog sleep, you're believing that they are dreaming. You can see that. And then you assume when you wake up in the morning that, well, I was in my bed, I was probably acting similarly to my dog when she is asleep, right? Or when you watch your family sleeping, when you watch them fall asleep, you can say, well, I probably did that last night. But that's just a correlation or something. That's scientific investigation. But I'm saying, let's go into your true experience. Now, when you dream, you think you're awake. It's and you believe that you are me, right? So when you fall asleep, you're not Muhammad. You are you. You are not someone else. You are yourself. It's extremely interesting. So dreaming and being awake are like the same thing. I think they're almost the same thing. I tend to think of them as it's the same thing as the now moment. So that's why when you're in the I am, the nature of the I am is that it's always, always now, always, always, always now. So, and that's why it's permanent, is because the now moment is always permanent. It's always now. It's never not now. Right? That's another way of looking at it as a double negative. The now is never not now. It's impossible not to be now. Even in the future, there's two ways of thinking of that. Is that you're thinking of the future now, but also in the future that will be now. So it's impossible to get out of the now. Completely impossible. Anything that exists now because it's being perceived. Perception happens now. But in the perception, we have to go back to who is perceiving, and that is happening right now. Now, there's another thing that happens during sleep, though. That's part of this 24/7. Right? It's when you're sleeping, you're not only dreaming. You're also doing something else, but you're actually being. So what do you think that is? What is that happening between dreams? Or what's happening before you dream? Right? So in the morning when you wake up, you had just been dreaming, right? But if you wake up like groggy, or actually, let's see. I don't know, from your perspective, are you groggiest when you're waking up in the midst of a clear dream or like in dreamless sleep? Right? Because that's the other one, is there's dreamless sleep. The sleeping or the just being nothingness that is happening between the dreams. So dreaming is obviously not nothing, right? There's definitely something is happening when you're dreaming. It's hard to pinpoint what that is, but it's definitely something and not nothing. But now, between dreams, that's what's interesting. There's something else going on there. And according to Ramana Maharshi and other people who have studied the Vedas or Vedanta, those are kind of big words. Vedanta means people who believe in the Vedas or follow